Hi, and welcome to Insight. I'm Polly Lynn, editor and publisher of the Mountain Times in Killington, and joining me today on the panel is Alan Keyes, editor at the Rutland Herald. Welcome.
Hey, Polly. Hi.
Today we are welcomed by two guests to our show, Kiki McShane and Nancy Berzon, who are here, two of the three founders of Women's Professional Development Center of Rutland. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Polly. Thank you.
You're here today to talk to us about the center, and that's especially appropriate as this week happens to be National Women's Business Week.
Mm-hmm.
But as a sort of start to the show, I was wondering if you could just back up to the very beginning. How did you guys get started? What was the impetus? How did you even identify a need for such a center in Rutland County? And then how did it come to be?
Mm-hmm. Well, Nancy and myself and Chris Fushi, Christopher we like to say because it isn't just women who are involved, we actually partly in our experience in working in business and also working in Rutland realized that there was a gap of when we talked about who would we see or who would we be able to go to as women leaders in our community. And it's not in any way to say there's not women leaders, but we felt that there needed to be more of a presence for women in our community and also a support for women who are in leadership roles, maybe running a business or working for an organization in a management position, that they wanted to have that ability to where would we access information and support for that next level of information or expertise that this population might be looking for. So that was really kind of, I think, a common driver for us. And the three of us really just got together and said, let's just start. And the one thing we did do before, we didn't leap into an abyss. We actually did two focus groups.
Okay.
We did one in Chittenden County and we did one in Rutland County to see if other women in like positions felt that there was a need, and we got very positive response to that.
In both Chittenden and Rutland County?
Yes, very similar kinds of response.
So is there a center in Chittenden County?
There's not a center.
There's not a center. There is a lot going on in Chittenden County, so we were seeing that they sort of formed an informal monthly get-together organization, and I went up to view one of their luncheons to see what was going on there, and they were pulling in 75 to 100 people, women, for lunch, and women who were really interested in networking, interested in talking about their careers, and also wanting to meet other people who could help them with their careers. And they also began to put on some programming. So we did borrow, as we started working down here in the Rutland area, we borrowed some of their ideas as well. But I wanted to say that this is Kiki's brainchild. And when she approached me, when Chris and Kiki approached me, I thought, this is a good idea for Rutland. But I did some, looking at the data to see what is the need. And it was really appalling. When you look at the labor market information for Rutland County, the wage gap that exists between men and women. And what was interesting about it is it exists across every industry sector that we have, across every age demographic. So, some people might say, well, women earn less because they have families and they get out of the, the workforce, which is true, but they shouldn't then be affected when they're 45 to 65 prime earning years. There is, in fact, the largest wage gap at that point in time. So when you look at the data says this is an issue that needs to have a spotlight put on it.
Yeah.
And so I really, felt strongly that the workforce board needed to be involved with this as well.
So is that data specific to Rutland County, or are you seeing those trends statewide, nationwide?
Well, it is. People often talk about a wage gap nationwide, and they will use a figure of about 20%.
Okay.
What I found in our data, looking sector by sector, is some of these go as high as close to 50%. Wow. It is amazing. So I haven't looked at the national data sector by sector. I have really focused in on Rutland because that's where I work. And I think if we want to improve the economic welfare of Rutland County residents, this is an area we have to focus on because If you even get women up to average wage, that's an improvement for themselves and their families.
And the whole economy, really.
And the
I
whole
mean,
economy,
Right.
exactly.
you know, women are now making up almost 50%, I would imagine, of the workforce.
Yes.
And if you can
Yes.
raise those wages, then families and
Right.
and the whole county will benefit, businesses.
Right.
And that really was a part of what we wanted to do also, was to make sure that we were looking at our community and seeing this as a resource that would help economic development, that supporting business also attracts people, and then so not just supporting, but also thinking that we'd be able to attract businesses to come here, knowing that there's the support that they need. One of the things, like Nancy was saying, when we looked at where was there a gap, that the SBA also shows that that there's a very large percentage of women who start business, but there's a higher percentage of women businesses that close after that critical 3 to 5 years, or a significant number of employees. And so that's one of the reasons why we felt that that group of women was also underserved. So starting your business and growing it, you may have a level of support there, but it's kind of to the next level, where lots of times we feel that there's not that access to support, whether it's financial or networking or even role models, kind of following that idea of if you see it, you can achieve it.
So you're finding that women business leaders who start businesses can't really get past the point of like working too many hours and not, they're sort of caught in that point where they can't hire employees and sort of have a normal work-life balance. They get to a point where they're working 60, 80, 100 hours a week and they can't continue,
I mean, I'm sure that that's a factor. I think that there are a lot of things that come into play, and it may also be like, where would I go, to get the information? And there certainly is a lot of information out there, but part of it is just like, who do you have as that group of peers that may expedite you getting the answer, that you need? And I mean, we all know that time is really precious, so making sure that people have access quickly, the right information, but really importantly, the ability to network and know that there's others, there's a like group of people.
How do you get the word out about your organization to people who would be interested in taking part?
Well, I think the key way is with our networking luncheons that we give. And Nancy thought that, I know she said we borrowed it from Burlington, but I feel like it was a lot of actually her thinking like, okay, great, we have to have marketing right now, and we had a very small budget. I mean, we were very lucky to get 2 grants. We got 2 grants from the Vermont Community Foundation, and we were able to use the WIB that Nancy's executive director of to be our fiscal agent. But our real goal was to create these opportunities that were regular, so that every month the community would see like, okay, there's a group of people getting together. They've got speakers that are talking about really pertinent issues, and the word, started spreading. And I think one of my favorite events or circumstances was, and we also moved around. So we were looking at different areas in the community where we hold the luncheons, and we did one at the Paramount, and people came in off the street because they heard people talking at the coffee exchange, like, oh, there's a meeting and there's going to be a speaker, and so that word of mouth was really important.
Is there a geographic region?
Well, we're starting with Rutland.
Just Rutland City?
No, the county.
The whole county?
Yeah.
Okay. Are most of the participants right now from the city, or do you get many from Killington, or what is the?
We've had people come from Manchester,
Oh, wow.
Killington.
Yes,
We have had
Manchester.
people come from Killington, yeah.
So it's drawing. The age mix is pretty broad. We
Yeah.
have some students that are interested. Our last event, I think in particular, we had a panel discussion of women in education, women who have excelled in a field that is a traditional one for women, but they chose a different path. They chose to be on the administrative side. So we had Joyce Judy from CCV, the president. We had Mary Moran, superintendent of schools, and Pixie Loomis, who runs the Vermont Adult Learning. So variety of sort of positions, but very important ones. And We did draw a number of students from the local colleges who were interested in education. But I think part of what we like to do with these luncheons is bring in role models so that we can help increase the aspiration of young people and women professionals, but also bring in some skill building. So we're mixing presentations and luncheons with also some workshops. Kiki did a workshop at our August meeting around team building. And we have one coming up in December that will be on speaking skills. We're finding that a lot of women are uncomfortable at speaking in front of a crowd. And of course, that's a key skill to have for success. You have to feel comfortable that you can do that.
And you said the next one's going to be in December?
We have one coming up in November.
Oh, November, sorry.
That will be a presentation. We're still working on the next several months, but I do know that in December we have someone that will come who will do a presentation about speaking, but then we'll stay and do a workshop for people so that we can actually give them some practice with some techniques.
Can you talk about who some of your supporters are?
Well, we've had financial support from the Vermont Community Foundation.
Yeah.
We've had support from GE. They actually wrote a beautiful, support letter. We've had, of course, the colleges, where we've had a session at College of St. Joe's, at Castleton, and CCV. So those folks have been very supportive in giving us space and making sure that there's people that come, faculty and college students that come. I think a lot of it has really been just, like Nancy said, the mix of people who have come has shown that there is that kind of, I kind of take that as support, whether it's they work for a large organization or they have their own business. And another thing I think that is interesting about support, how do you, what does that really mean? That there's times when folks we know maybe have a very short lunch time, and we've done it at lunch, thinking that, okay, that's going to be convenient for people. And we've known that employers may have let them stay a little bit longer, or knowing ahead of time that that's where we're going to. So they've been very supportive, in that way.
What if they can't make it to a lunch? Is there resources that are available to them? They can reach out to you and get support other times?
Well,
other
we're
places?
building towards that.
Yeah.
That we really are in our very next stage of growth. So we launched our first luncheon in May, and that was with Governor Madeline Kunin. And that was if we charged, it would have been a sold out, a sold out house. But we're very much looking to literally build that ability to be supportive beyond just having a luncheon. One of the things that we're happy about right now is some of the growth that's happening downtown, and the fact that there is the Rutland Center of Castleton, where they're looking to do collaborative work and create opportunities for people to have centers. So we're talking with them about maybe co-locating there. So there would be that opportunity that resources could be there, easy access, to people. So that is on the drawing board, is to create that more of a regular place, to come to.
So you just mentioned one. How many other services are there for professional development? Maybe not just catered to women, but do these services exist for men and women in the Rutland community?
Yeah, there's support, I think, for professional services, whether it's through people's individual employers or the standard, SBA, Department of Labor, resources that we have within the community. And that in no way is to say that those people aren't doing great jobs of outreach, but I think that sometimes and you alluded to it, like when you're working really hard and, a 60-hour work week may be like, oh, I got off early today, that sometimes it's hard to kind of find that. Yep. So we thought if we made it easy and we created that name presence and awareness, that would make it a little easier. And we've also just thought that one of the things that would be a sign of accomplishment is if it's not the Women's Professional Development Center of Rutland, but it's the Professional Development Center of Rutland. We'd like it to be that.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, are these, some of these challenges that we've heard, public speaking is sort of a problem or a scare for everyone. There's a name for that phobia, and the way that technology is changing the workplace, and the way that new skills are needed in the workplace for these ever-changing, quickly changing, mostly due to technology, but also just due to communication speeds and other things. how is it a women's issue? Or is it not? Are women just underserved in this population?
I think that, you know, if you think about the data, that you have to acknowledge there is a women's issue. And for whatever reason, women are not getting, you know, sufficient help, and we need them in the workforce. We absolutely need them in our workforce. So we need them to play leadership roles in our workforce. And not to say that there aren't people out there, but still, just looking at the data, you'd have to say there's still some issues. But I think as well, one of the things that can be really important is having a group of people, a network of people that if you're struggling with something, you can find people who are either in the same situation or they've been there before and they can help you through it. I think back to one of our incredible speakers, Whitney Lamey, who founded Castleton Crackers. I mean, this is a serial entrepreneur, and she's found great success now, but hearing her talk about it was very inspiring to others in the room. It's not the first thing she tried to do in her life. It's after several attempts at doing this, and she's finally understanding how to take it to the next level. But, you know, so she had to actually also say, I can't do this all alone. She had to find partners that were willing to come in and invest with her and make that happen. So I think there's a lot to be learned by having a venue where people who are going through this can come and women feel comfortable being a part of that and being in that conversation.
How can networking and mentorship help address the wage gap?
Well, I think if nothing else, and this is crucial, is that you can see somebody. You literally see the evidence of somebody who has been successful, and that can be extremely inspirational. And also it gives you the access to be able to say, where did you get that skill? Or what was that little extra thing, you know, that you did that, you know, creates that awareness? I think, addressing it though really has to do a lot with policies, the legality. I mean, it's a very complex issue. That doesn't mean it can't be solved. But part of it is just by that willingness to ask or to bring it up or to speak about it or even to be aware, you know, that your salary is below average and you may be performing above average. Yeah. And I mean, I just think it's telling that we're still talking about that, you know, kind of thing in 2014.
Well, it sounds like you're talking about maybe two different issues that are probably blended together in our community and every other community, and that is not just that women are being paid less for equal work, but also that they're holding jobs that are maybe below their potential, you know, and or don't have the skills to get those jobs, or don't have the motivation or confidence maybe to go out and get them.
I think probably that's more the case than the first situation. Coming from the private sector a number of years ago, they were very sensitive to equal pay for equal work, and you have to be in today's environment. So why is it we still have the gap? And I think a lot of it must have to do with setting the bar high enough for what women can achieve. Some of the subtle ways that there may be discrimination that may still exist in the workplace, but certainly I don't think it's by intention of employers to do that. I think it just is one of the things that if people are more aware, that helps. You know,
I know that it's frequently said more eloquently than I can say that, you know, you can't become what you can't see. And so I think actually showing those examples is really key. And just the other day, my granddaughter picked up a broom in the barn and she said, look, I'm a boy banjo player. And I said, you're a boy banjo player? I said, how come you're not a girl banjo player? And she said, oh, I've never seen a girl play the banjo. And she wasn't thinking like, I can't play the banjo. She was thinking, I've never, you know, she'd never seen it. So it wasn't a reality to her. And I think that's a big part of what we're doing is we're just making what is much more real. You know, that there are women leaders, there are women risk takers, and instead of having it be the exception, we'd like it to be, you know, the rule, the norm.
Since starting, what have you learned about the need for this type of organization here in Rutland County, in the Rutland region?
I've been kind of surprised at how easy it's been to get people to come, which shows that there is probably a lot more of a need than maybe is even being articulated. So I think that, you know, that's been really
Are you seeing a
encouraging.
stronger need in certain areas, like for developing skills or for networking or for a specific purpose?
I think a little bit of both. I mean, I think that there's a real need for networking, and the other organization that's doing that is the Young Professionals Organization, which is a great networking, you know, opportunity. And then I think out of that comes, you know, what are the specifics, you know, that people are, you know, are looking for.
Do people come to you with topics, or do you go to them, or how does that work? How do you decide what you're going to bring up?
Well, we ask them
Yeah.
what they want to learn more about, and then some of it's observable. So, for example, in talking with people, there's a strong interest in negotiation skills. And that is really important, not only from your starting wage, which forms the base, but also within any kind of work environment where you're trying to work with coworkers and colleagues and build support for a project that you think is important. That's kind of a negotiation. So I think that's one of the areas that we've already had one workshop, I guess about a year ago. Our first one had to do with negotiation, and I'm sure we'll have others that will address portions of that. There's interest in public speaking, as I mentioned, and as people identify areas they'd like to get more information on, that will go right into our planning.
Great.
You guys have pretty lofty goals, it sounds like, for the whole vision of women in business in Rutland County. But how do you measure it? What you have specific goals that you're trying, like tangible sort of benchmarks that you're trying to hit, or is it involvement and awareness that is the main, or maybe both, in the main missions of the center?
I think one of the things we'd like to see, because it is a little bit of both. I mean, right now we're doing a lot of visioning and a lot of like finding out information. But I think we'd be really successful if we had a Women Business Owner of the Year nominated and acknowledged in Rutland that has nothing to do with us. To me, that would be a huge accomplishment.
You mean like through the Chamber of Commerce? Just one of the women who own a business be the winner? I don't think they've had one yet.
Haven't.
I don't either. I don't
Didn't
think
know
they've
if I
had one
wanted to
either.
say that, but no, haven't.
Well, I mean, and that's not the only category. I mean, they just came out with a study, I think, last week, the Representation 2020, which is a national group that promotes women in politics, and Vermont scored terribly with women in politics. And I think we were like 39th in the nation for gender equality, and they pointed to some things like we're one of only 4 states that has never elected a woman to Congress, where 1 in 8 mayors is female, and a couple other statistics that were shocking, including New Hampshire, our sister state, scored 47.45 out of 50, as a 50 being the completely equal between men and women, and Vermont scored 11. So those are pretty concerning.
Yes,
and
very concerning.
And especially since we're, New Hampshire's. What could they be doing differently? What is?
You look at our legislative makeup, and there are a lot of wonderful, talented women there.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure I know the answer to that. I think that's an interesting question as to why more of them don't want to take the step. I can think of some I'd love to see take that step and be a governor for this state and
we've
move
had
on.
one. We've had Madeline Kunin.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just
one.
Does this organization
So far.
Exactly.
do any advocacy for women in business? Like educating the public, or beyond people going to you, but you going out to the public, or
nominating somebody, say, for the business person of the year.
something like that, kind of an advocacy
It's a
type.
good idea.
Yeah, that's a
role.
great idea.
We have not yet, and I would say
Right.
that
Because the wage gap, maybe there's people who aren't aware of the numbers who when they become
Right.
aware of them, might take some action based
They
on
might
that.
be surprised.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
As I was.
I'm surprised as well.
I
So
was
that
too,
education of
so-
me, I might not have gone, maybe I would go to luncheon, I'm not sure, but just providing that information out there to the
Exactly.
public, I think is important.
Well, I
as
think
well.
that's something that we would be doing as we move forward. We're a pretty new organization.
Yeah.
We're still forming how we want to proceed, and obviously have to figure out how to sustain the organization as well. So our work this year has been to put some things out there, see who comes, learn from them what they want, see if there's an appetite and interest for this. And I think that we have clearly seen.
We definitely have, but I know that there's just even, like talking about this now, I'm learning new information based on what you said, and then also taking the idea of advocacy and kind of running with it. And I think that's one of the things that's really great about, where we are. We have a very strong working board made of men and women, because really to make something work, it has to be equal and it has to be with support of the entire community. So we very deliberately, even though we're not constrained by organization at this point, we really have very deliberately looked to get input that's pertinent, so men and women doing different things. But I think taking that then to its next level, which would be something around advocacy, is a great idea.
Maybe going to a business in the community and saying, here's what we do, here's some of the numbers we see, here's some of the kind of educating the public.
Right,
I think sounds very exciting.
yeah. Thanks, we do too.
You guys have outlined a growth plan of $3 million over, in 3 years. Is that correct? Yeah. So where does the money come from? How are you going to get there? And you say it's going to be self-sustaining, which is obviously the goal. But how do you raise $3 million, and who does it support?
Well, what we would do, we have to start small, which is what we've done to date. And with the ability to be a nonprofit, we can access grants. That would be one way. We're looking at we've never charged for anything. We're looking at actually being a membership organization, fee for service, those kinds of things that would be typical, that a business would do. So when we think we're filling a need, and we're going to be developing our capacities to actually deliver, for that. And eventually we will have to charge.
For consulting services?
Consulting or our speakers, anything educational, that we may do. But one of the things we're also looking to do is who we collaborate with. And I'm not saying we're going to get money from everyone we collaborate with, but one of the things is to expand, like with collaborating with Castleton or with collaborating with another national women's organization. Those kinds of opportunities we think will help us, financially.
Absolutely. Are there other similar organizations in the state that you guys are looking to collaborate with as well?
There's one that I know of it's actually not in New England, is the National Association of Women Business Owners.
Okay.
And we've been talking with them to see if there might be things that we can do, because they'd like a New England presence, and they don't have a New England presence. Yeah.
So this would be sort of the New England hub for
Yeah.
that. Wow, that's very exciting.
We're going to be a New England hub.
Right here in Rutland.
Right, exactly.
That's
What are
awesome.
some of the groups you're looking to collaborate with or partner with?
Well, one is the National Association of Women Business Owners, and that's just a very, very recent, outreach. But we think that some people will maybe even come to us, now knowing that we're here.
Like what types of people? Are you talking like Chamber of Commerce? And you mentioned the Castleton Center, and maybe trying to think of other things, other business groups in the community to come to you for networking and participate, maybe sponsoring events, that kind of thing? Is
Yeah,
that what
we
you're talking about?
actually, one of the things that we may do, although it may not be an organization, we may actually ask a business, to sponsor an event. Castleton doing something reciprocal, with Castleton. And then I think I wouldn't say we've identified anybody right now that we say, okay, it should be this organization. But that's part of the process that we're going through. We've actually we haven't had a formal board. We've had a group of people that have come together to do kind of basic, our foundation work, and now we're at that next level where we've put together a working board, and we're hoping that we'll get some of that input, from them.
And then actually, where is the center now? What is the?
It's actually located, it's kind of a virtual center, but where we hold our meetings is actually where my office is located, which is at 230 West Street. And the only thing we do for meetings right now is we have our board meetings, and then our luncheons are actually, they move around, you know, within the city.
And the goal is to have an actual center, like downtown or
Yes.
wherever. And
That
you
would be
mentioned-
delightful.
And you mentioned
Yeah.
co-locating perhaps with somebody who has
Right.
a mission that might be, go along with this.
Yes, yeah.
Great.
I'm sorry to cut you guys off, but we are out of time
Okay.
already. For the,
Wow.
for the- we'll have to have you back on and learn about the developments.
Like what we did next, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. Maybe, you know, next year at this time or something, and learn about the progress you guys have made with the Women's Professional Development Center. Thank you so much for being
Oh,
on the
you're
panel
welcome.
with us. Thank you,
Thank you.
Alan.
Thanks,
and we'll
Polly.
see you next time on Insight.